I don't give anybody a leash.
Well, I'm saying you...
A leash?
like...
Free speech. Gonna control what people say? Gonna tell people what to believe? Gonna tell people... I don't tell any other human being what to say, what to think, and there's no leashes on any of them.
What you just saw was a woke reporter trying to take a shot, only to be completely shut down by Dana White, the no-nonsense UFC boss who doesn't have time for weak arguments, and doesn't care what anybody thinks about him.
This guy, when I say this guy, I'm talking about President Trump, is such a good friend and such a loyal, amazing guy, man. He's a great guy. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, and you know.
You're not worried about losing any viewers over your friendship with the president.
I could give a shit.
Right.
I don't give a shit. If you don't like me,
right,
because I'm friends with this guy, that's your problem, not mine.
Dana White isn't just the CEO and president of the UFC. He's a powerhouse worth over $500 million with a schedule that would crush most people. Yet somehow, he always finds the time to step in, ready to call out reporters whenever they try to push hollow agendas his way. But here's where it gets even more interesting.
And I just hate that shit. I get it. You want your clicks or whatever it is you guys want to get, your little moment that you can post. But I will attack you if you do that. You know what I mean? It just causes a lot of bull.
If you're wondering what's really happening here, here's the reality. Many reporters today seem more interested in manufacturing clickbait than asking real, substantial questions. Instead of seeking genuine answers, they goad fighters at press conferences. Fishing for reactions they can twist into flashy headlines. But Dana White, he's got zero tolerance for that kind of nonsense, and he's never afraid to call it out.
We're in a very strange place at the moment in sport, where biological males are beginning to dominate biological females in women's sport because they identify as women. What do you think of that?
I think you know exactly what I think of that. I think that, you know, let me put it to you this way. I have a daughter, okay? And you know, I don't ever want to see a day where somebody who is a biological male is competing against my daughter.
Watch how this reporter keeps throwing around loaded terms like racial undertones, almost as if they're trying to spark a race controversy where none exists.
You know, I know you say, hey, this is the fight business. People say nasty things, right? But the tension between those two and kind of the racial undertones and all those things, how do you...
What were the racial undertones?
Drigga says he's the real African fighter, and so, you know, Israel dropped some N-words in there tonight.
So what was the racial? Who did? Who dropped the racial?
Israel was saying over and over, yeah.
He's black.
50 N-bombs in there.
Okay, he's black. Who gives a shit?
Here's the reality. A black man used the N-word. Not exactly breaking news, but the reporter seems determined to spin it into a headline-grabbing issue. The twist, Dana White didn't bite. The reporter clearly expected some big reaction, or maybe even a lecture, but Dana wasn't falling for it.
I was going to say, so you don't have any concern about the way the build-up, the tension between those two?
I could care less. This is the fight business. Israel Adesanya can say whatever he wants to say. Who gives a shit?
Dana holds his ground, making it clear as day that his fighters have the freedom to say what they want. In the fight business, trash talk isn't just allowed, it's part of the game. But that's a concept these woke reporters just can't seem to wrap their heads around. Now, let's go back to that reporter from the start of this video, pushing Dana on why he allows his fighters so much freedom. As usual, Dana shuts him down with no patience, giving him a blunt lesson on the basics of free speech.
What is your question?
I was asking that question. I'll move on, though.
Yeah, probably a good idea. That's ridiculous to say I give somebody a leash. Free speech, brother. People can say whatever they want and they can believe whatever they want.
Of course, someone as unapologetic as Dana White is bound to take some hits from the woke media. When it comes to his style of running the UFC, the critics don't hold back, churning out think pieces and flooding social media with threads that dissect his every move. But let's hear what Dana really thinks about all that noise, shall we?
The deal that I just cut for Slap is bigger than the UFC deal we cut with Spike TV after the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't give a shit what the media says about it. They don't matter.
Dana's businesses are booming. His bank account is loaded. So when the woke mob tries to come for him on social media, it's like trying to break down a wall with a plastic spoon. It's just not happening. And let's face it, Dana's not the only powerhouse out there who's risked it all to stand up to these critics. He's not just defending himself or pushing back against reporters who try to rattle him. He's genuinely fed up with how the woke brigade tries to silence anyone who doesn't toe their line.
The lunatics trying to cancel them.
Yep.
Going after Chappelle, going after Rogan, going after all these different comedians who stood strong, stood their ground, and continued to do their art, in which we need badly right now in this crazy-ass world we live in.
It's one thing to disagree with someone's opinion, but the woke mob doesn't stop there. They aim to cancel anyone daring enough to stand against them. It's over the top and has become a crusade against talented comedians who are simply doing their job. These days, just making people laugh in an increasingly uptight world is apparently enough to get you labeled as problematic. The truth: these critics just can't take a joke. But standing firm in a world this woke, that's no easy feat, and Dana's ready to give credit to someone who rarely gets the spotlight for doing just that.
Because at the end of the day, I'm sure Dave Chappelle's doing well, but you have to give credit to the CEO of Netflix. When that thing went down, everybody was attacking Chappelle and saying, take that down, cancel him, blah, blah, blah. And the CEO of Netflix stood up.
Dana's comments point back to when Dave Chappelle faced massive backlash, with the woke mob demanding Netflix pull his special, claiming it was too controversial. For Dana, what followed was a true show of leadership. Netflix's CEO standing his ground, refusing to buckle under the pressure. Despite all the outrage, Netflix kept the special up, and the woke mob didn't get their way this time. In Dana's eyes, it was a rare display of grit in an industry where most fold at the first sign of public outcry. He believes credit is due to those who hold their ground when it matters. But this isn't an isolated case of the wokies trying to cancel someone. Joe Rogan also found himself in the crosshairs, and Dana has something to say about that too.
First of all, the whole Rogan thing that happened was 10 years earlier, and Rogan was quoting somebody when he used the word. It was a quote. Rogan wasn't going out and just using the word. Then somebody went out and clipped it all together, and the times that he was quoting others of saying it. And Rogan said, whoa, I saw this thing too. It looks bad, and I apologize for the word and whatever, but, and then everybody, it just...
The left operates like bloodhounds. If you're a public figure who consistently challenges their views, they pick up the scent and come after you with everything they've got. Look at Joe Rogan. They tried to cancel him over a comment he made a decade ago. It didn't matter that it was 10 years in the past or that he was quoting someone else. When it comes to the woke crowd, context is irrelevant. And that's exactly what makes their approach so maddening. They'll skip the details and jump straight into the attack. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Even Dana himself has learned a thing or two about standing up to the woke powers from none other than Dave Chappelle.
Chappelle said, you know how many shoe offers I've been made and I never took one? You know why? Because when they do something you like, the first thing they do is take your shoes back. And then once they take your shoes back, everybody else starts going, oh my God, should we take ours away too? And that's how it all starts in this whole snowball effect.
And it doesn't stop there. Once they set their sights on you, it's a slippery slope. One brand cuts ties, then others start to question if they should follow, and suddenly, you're back to square one. The real lesson here? Never give the woke powers an inch. Just one word or one line they don't approve of, and they'll go for the jugular. Dana's seen it all firsthand and learned the hard way. Now, he's at a point where he genuinely doesn't care what people think of him or his businesses. And in this next clip, he makes it absolutely clear. He doesn't care if you like his politics or not.
This guy, when I say this guy, I'm talking about President Trump, is such a good friend and such a loyal, amazing guy, man. He's a great guy. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, and you know.
And when the reporter asks if he's worried about losing fans because of his support for Donald Trump, he had some strong words in response.
I could give a shit.
Right.
I don't give a shit.
Liberals probably watch
If you don't like me
right.
because I'm friends with this guy, that's your problem, not mine.
In truth, more people need to embrace this fearless approach to handling wokeness. The woke crowd? They're like high school bullies. And the only way to shut them down is by standing your ground, showing you're not intimidated. They feed off fear, and as long as you're worried about being canceled, they've got you exactly where they want you. But thanks to people like Dana White, others are learning not to be afraid of speaking their minds. Take, for instance, the moment he was asked this question.
We're in a very strange place at the moment in sport where biological males are beginning to dominate biological females in women's sport because they identify as women. What do you think of that?
I think you know exactly what I think of that. I think that, you know, let me put it to you this way. I have a daughter, okay? And you know, I don't ever want to see a day where somebody who is a biological male is competing against my daughter.
He goes on to say it's another nutty and insane thing that we have to deal with in society, and he's not wrong. Do you have thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments, right after you subscribe for more videos like this.